Hello, you wonderful sons and daughters of God, my brothers and sisters. Great to have you here. As you can see, we're going to be studying Daniel chapter 11. And it is so huge, it's so big, it's so important. Yeah, I can't wait to share it with you because, this is going to be a feast for your faith in Christ. It's wonderful. So let's go ahead and just talk about what are we going to be covering out here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Daniel chapter 11 is the greatest foundational chapter out of all the Bible. That's a big claim. No other chapter covers such a vast amount of time with as much detail, all in chronological order, without any major time gaps. There's always a prophetic person and or event all along the way. It starts to be fulfilled in 1925 and it ends with the return of Christ in power and glory. There is, within many kings, a succession of 8 kings leading up to the return of Christ in power and glory. We learn which country the first 4 kings rule. The United States is referenced during this very moment in time. There's a major clue as to which king sets up the worldwide monetary system. And there is a major clue as to when the 8th king gets the power, seat, and authority of Satan. This is a big chapter. This is so important. And there's a lot more information that we get out of this chapter too. But right there, that's enough to say, I want to see it. I want to know that. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm excited to show it to you. Okay, so now, Daniel chapter 11 on this chart here. On this chart, this is Daniel chapter 11 over here. And what I say is that the chart is to help you to remember the scriptures. And it's the Holy Ghost that is to teach you about the scriptures. So keep a prayer in your heart and let's get started with Daniel chapter 11. I'm going to go ahead and get this changed up right over to here. Here we go. So in Daniel chapter 11 starts off in verse 1 that there's this angel that is talking to Daniel. So it says, it's an angel, in the first year of Darius the king, even I stood to confirm and strengthen him. And now I will shew thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. So where's Persia? Today, Iran is Persia. Persia changed its name back in like 1935, I think. And so it talks about there's going to be these 3 kings in Persia, and then the 4th king shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength and through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So let's go ahead and just go back right over here to the chart for a second. And let's look at a couple of things. As you're going to learn, Daniel chapter 11 talks about these 4 kings. The 4th one goes to battle. He gets defeated. His kingdom is split up into a kingdom of the south and a kingdom of the north. Within the kingdom of the north, there's these 4 kings that lead up to the return of Christ in power and glory. So here's a succession of 8 kings. Now in Revelation chapter 17, we read about a succession of 8 kings as well. We talked about that in the first clip. And in that first clip, we showed how the 8th king gets the power, seat, and authority of Satan and goes to fight against Christ when Christ returns. And we're going to see that the same thing, this king over here gets the power, seat, and authority of Satan, goes fight against Christ. We find that in Revelation chapter 17, the seventh king continues for a short space. We're going to see that this king only lives for a few days. So this is really important to follow along in Daniel chapter 11 and pick up as much information as we can to help us in our journey to understand what's coming up leading up to the return of Christ in power and glory. And right now, what we had learned that there's a succession of these four kings, and the fourth one is far richer than they all. So then, let's go ahead and go right over here. And what we find is that we have Kamini right here, and before him there was three other leaders. These three other leaders were worth maybe $1 to $3 billion each. But look at how rich Kamini is. Kamini is worth over $95 billion, and that was in 2013. In 2016, Obama and Biden, they flew over to Kamini $150 billion. I heard it was $152 billion, but we won't get into that. Anyways, a lot of money on top of the $93 billion, but that was in 2013. And he's made a lot more money since 2013 to now. So anyways, he is far richer than the first three kings. Okay. So then the question comes back to, all right, so who is the realm of Grecia? Who's Grecia? Well, Grecia is a country in which Iran is stirring up everybody against the fourth king. Who is the fourth king? Who is Kamini stirring up everybody against? If you go to presstv.com, that's the Iranian-owned news agency, almost every day you'll see articles about Kamini or the others beating up or stirring up everybody against who? The United States. Yeah, us. Almost every day. So then the question is that why did the angel tell John about 2,500 years ago that we're called Grecia? Why didn't he say the United States? Well, I think that wasn't a very important thing for Daniel to know back then. But we can see today why he would call us Grecia. Because what's the welcoming image of the United States? And what does our buildings look like over in Washington, D.C. area? Yeah, look at this. The Statue of Liberty looks like a Greek goddess. And then you look at the White House with the pillars, and then also the Supreme Court building and all these statues. And you can see a lot more over there in Washington, D.C. We are the Grecia spoken of in Daniel chapter 11, verse 2. Grecia references the United States, and it's regarding the United States during the time that Kamini is stirring up everybody against the United States, which is this moment in time now. Now, in the next clip, we get to Daniel chapter 8, and in Daniel chapter 8, there's another reference of not only Grecia, but the leader of Grecia. So we're talking the United States, the leader of the United States is referenced over there in Daniel chapter 8. It is phenomenal. Time for an update. So the clip that you just watched on Daniel chapter 11 and the next clip you're going to watch on Daniel chapter 8, those clips were both done October of 2020. Now, we all know how the election turned out in November, and we could have some fantastic discussions about that. But right now, what we want to do is we want to take a look at the prophecies. And the prophecies that I'm really wanting to focus in on right now is that there's going to be a war between the United States, Iran, and Turkey. So the United States is going to attack Iran and Turkey, and we're going to remove those two leaders from power. Now, as you'll see in the next clip on Daniel chapter 8, I'm all in. I'm saying absolutely, positively, it's Trump. Now, here's the thing, is that I still look at who would do that attack. Would Trump do that attack, or would Biden do that attack? And I still say, I see no way Biden would do that attack. I don't see it, guys. But Trump is not in power. So here's the thing, is that I think 2022 is going to be a phenomenal year. As we've seen, the decade of the 2020 so far, it's just been crazy. What is, isn't, what isn't, is, and everything is all mixed up, turned upside down. And so we'll see how 2022 turns out. I feel that the war with Iran and Turkey is going to happen around 2023. So I think that 2022, at some point, we're going to start to see things really shaping up that way. Who's going to be the leader of the United States when that war happens? Now, it has to be, as you'll see, a male, because in Daniel chapter 8, it talks about a king, the king of Grecia, which is the United States. So it's the leader of the United States. So anyways, that's the update, and we'll see what happens in 2022. Can't wait. This is getting exciting. Get your soda pop and popcorn. We're going to have a show to watch. Enjoy. Here we are. We're ready to get going on Daniel chapter 8. So let's go ahead and start with verse 1 over here. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Well, what is all that about? We don't have to guess. We have an angel that told John or Daniel the answer, and Daniel recorded it. So let's go ahead and go over here to verse 19. And he said, this is the angel, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed the end shall be. So this is talking about the last days, guys. Now verse 20. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. Wow, here we go. They're 2 kings. So now we know that they're 2 kings. Let's go ahead and see what happens with these 2 kings over here. In verse 4, and I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. All right, so these 2 horns, the ram, pushes to the west, north, and south. No one can stop them. They just keep on doing it, and they do according to their will, and they become great. Now let's go ahead and read a little bit more, and then we're going to take a look at the chart, and we're going to take a look at some other things here. Verse 5, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Okay, all right, so what is this he-goat? What is this he-goat all about? Well, look at verse 8 here. This is huge. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. So after this he-goat, after that horn gets broken, then 4 come up in this place. But what is it meaning? We don't have to guess. We can come right over here, and the angel tells us the answer. In verse 21, the angel says, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now, that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 nations shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Guys, in Daniel chapter 11, we learned that Grecia is the United States. And now we see that this first king that's being referenced in this vision about Grecia, that king is going to attack the ram, and the 2 horns of the ram represents Iran, Persia, and another country, Media. What country is that? So let's take a look at a few things over here. Over on the chart, I diagrammed out this over here in Daniel chapter 8. Now it talks about this ram has 2 horns, and I'm saying it's Kamini and it's Erdogan of Turkey. Why? We'll get into that in just a second. But then I'm saying that it's President Trump, the United States over here, in that after Trump leaves office, whenever that is, however that is, then our nation splits up into 4 nations. This is huge. This is a huge claim. So let's take a look at why I'm coming to these conclusions over here. So let's look at this comparison. Over here we were reading in Daniel chapter 8, and we were reading that but he, this is the ram, and did according to his will and became great. Yet when in Daniel chapter 11, when we were reading Daniel chapter 11 in verse 3, we saw that a mighty king shall stand up, which is the 4th king, and shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. Do according to his will here, do according to his will here, becomes great, and then becomes great down here. That's a matchup. It's the same war that is being described in Daniel chapter 8 as being described in Daniel chapter 11. This war between Grecia and Persia. So we know that it's Kamini in the United States, but then there's this other country that was called Media, and that Media, that person, that king, is supposed to become higher than Kamini. So then let's go ahead and just take a look at ancient Media. Ancient Media is this area here, and anciently it took in part of Turkey. So I've been watching this area, wondering who's going to become higher than Kamini. And I kept watching year after year after year. And then in 2016, I started to watch President Erdogan of Turkey. He just seemed to be pretty forceful and looked like he was really trying to shake things up. And I kept on watching him, and I thought, you know what, he has a long ways to go before he becomes higher than Khomeini. But I'm going to keep on watching him. And then something fantastic happened. It was July 15th, 2016. It was a Friday. And news came out that there was a coup attempt on Erdogan over in Turkey. They were trying to get him out of power. And I was shaking my head and I go, oh my gosh. And I thought he was going to have a chance of becoming higher than Khomeini. And now he's getting booted out of here. What's going to happen? All that day I was just shaking my head going, man, I didn't see this one coming. But then Saturday morning, I learned that he got control over the country again. The coup attempt failed. And I just go, wow, what is going to happen here? He still has to become higher than Khomeini if he's the person that's being prophesied. And then the next day, Sunday, July 17th, 2016, you got to see this article here. Look at this article here. Muslim scholars around the world recognize President Erdogan as the supreme leader of the entire Muslim world. The entire Muslim world. That day, he became higher than Khomeini. Prophecy fulfilled. And you take a look at the past few years, and what has Iran and Turkey been doing? They have been pushing to the west and to the north and to the south. So that prophecy is happening right before us as well. And as you take a look at the tension between the United States and Iran, and it's been building up, and the tension between the United States and Turkey has been building up as well. I mean, here President Trump moved the U.S. Embassy over to Jerusalem, and Iran and Turkey was adamantly opposed against that. And then President Trump helped Israel to make this agreement with the UAE and also with Bahrain about having this relationship between Israel and them, and that's totally against Iran and Turkey as well. And then President Trump, Turkey is in a conflict right now with Greece over drilling rights in the Mediterranean Sea, and during this conflict, the United States tells Greece that they can start buying arms over their military weapons and everything, and Turkey is saying, why are you letting them to buy weapons? Here I am, and I'm in a fight with them. Why are you giving them weapons over here? And it just is building up. It's building up. So when people looked at the 2020 election, to me it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You take a look at the two candidates and you go, which one of the two candidates, Biden or Trump, which one looks like they could fulfill the prophecy of that right over here, verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And he goes over and he attacks Iran and Turkey, an ally, and he removes those two leaders. Does that sound like Trump or Biden? And remember, Biden and also Obama flew over $152 billion over to Iran and gave them that money. And in addition to that, they gave them the nuclear arms agreement over there. And Trump is the one that took away the agreement and said, no, we're not going to honor that agreement. And Trump is for Israel. And Trump and the Iranian leader, you're talking Ayatollah Khamenei, have been butting heads. It was a no-brainer. No-brainer. Trump is in prophecy. Now remember that this prophecy is about attacking Ayatollah Khamenei and Erdogan, not anyone else. It's those two leaders. And Ayatollah Khamenei, he's in his 80s. So guys, this is absolutely prophecy in progress right here. Daniel chapter 8, it's shaping up.